afar. It can guide us and help us to light, to draw nigh. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us to light, to draw nigh.
This reading is from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda, which are parallel commentaries on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita. This week is entitled Reincarnation, the Spiral Staircase. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, Jesus Christ tells us, "He that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out." There is a difference between church dogmas, which are based on reasoned deductions from scriptural statements, and the pronouncements of wisdom, which are based on the inner realization of scriptural truths. Reason, like a train, can only follow already existing tracks of human experience. Human memory, being short, is seldom able to cross back over the threshold of a person's present existence. Biblical references to previous lifetimes on earth are overlooked in the deductive process, and we find them therefore excluded from the body of official dogma. Nevertheless, such references exist. The Bible itself presents them, as Jesus does in this passage, not as an abstract teaching, but as direct, personal perception of truth. In the same way, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita silences Arjuna's reasonable doubts on the subject, not by reasoned argument, but by the frank statement contained in the 4th chapter of that great scripture. Arjuna, you and I have passed through many births. I know all of them, though you, O chastiser of foes, recall them not. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. And from Whispers from Eternity, a book of prayer poems by Master. Demand not to be enslaved by the ego or by ego-centered passivity. I want to use my own will, but guide it ever, Father, toward the golden paradise of all fulfillment. For I would be infinity's smiling child, confident of being imprisoned no longer behind bars of fruitless desire and withered hopes. I would break the shameful cords of lethargy that have presumed to hold me and step fearlessly into freedom. Released, I now blaze my way through forests of every limitation and delusion. Oh, my little vain ego may strut proudly, saying, "Behold my glory, worship me." But I will look through its transparent form and behold thine unimaginable beauty, clothed in the subtle form of the whole universe. The silence-tuned hearing of my soul will ignore that tiny boasting masquerader, my little self impersonating thee, and will listen rapturously to the wind-borne fragrant music of thine own matchless voice, whispering across the ages, I am he. I would like to begin this topic with singing a song that we'll all sing together. And Hitesh has given you the words here. Is anyone missing one of these? I'll just take the whole thing. It's okay. Thanks. Anybody else need one? One more. Okay. You can have 6. Okay. This is a song that we heard yesterday. Yesterday means last week. And it is a children's song. And yet it is very helpful in thinking of reincarnation. And, what are we here for? If we are here multiple times, why don't we remember from before? And if we do keep coming again and again, what's the point? And even if we sort of, well, yes, I know the point because I've read what the point is and I've heard what the point is. We have to know down to our core center of our hearts. And once we really know what the point is, we won't keep coming back. And not because we've read it, but because we won't be back. Because we'll be with God. So to the extent that we're not yet with God, and I'm speaking very personally, then we, any reminder, any suggestion, any hint of, okay, yes. Because there can be a tendency sometimes in our minds to grasp at new knowledge, and then once we have it, say, fine, this is my new knowledge. And then someone says, well, what about this new knowledge? No thanks, I have all knowledge now. And so we want to keep that openness to any little hint, any little crack in the prison walls, any little sort of sound of the exit we want to pursue. Not with fickleness, as Swamiji was cautioning against, but with enthusiasm and with confidence that there is an exit and we will find it and we will exit. So, I will sing these, let's just say these words through once, just so that we really, and think about the meaning. It's not, again, we're so blessed that Swamiji wrote beautiful melodies that musically sound lovely and touch the heart more than lovely. They're very powerful. But at the same time, the words are also very, very deep. So, God, let's just read it together. God is our Father, our Mother too. God is our dearest treasure. God's ever near, the one friend who loves us without any measure. Of His dreams our love was made, only from Him is love repaid. Let us in gladness all live for Him, serve Him in every season, serve Him in thought with hand and limb, love Him without any reason. God befriends us as we are, fools we that keep His love afar. So that last part's a little poetic. Fools we that keep His love afar. Meaning we're foolish if we hold His love at a distance. Okay? So I'll sing a line and then you sing after me. God is our Father, our Mother too. God is our Father, our Mother too. God is our dearest treasure. God is our dearest treasure. God's ever near, the one friend who. God's ever near, the one friend who loves us without any measure. Loves us without any measure. Of His dreams our love was made. Of His dreams our love was made. Only from Him is love repaid. Only from Him is love repaid. Let us in gladness all live for Him. Let us in gladness all live for Him. Serve Him in every season. Serve Him in every season. Serve Him in thought with hand and limb. Serve Him in thought with hand and limb. Love Him without any reason. Love Him without any reason. God befriends us as we are. God befriends us as we are. Fools we that keep His love afar. Fools we that keep His love afar. Okay, ready to now carry on? Okay, here we go. All together now. God is our Father, our Mother too. God is our dearest treasure. God's ever near, the one friend who loves us without any measure. Of His dreams our love was made. Only from Him is love repaid. Let us in gladness all live for Him, serve Him in every season, serve Him in thought with hand and limb, love Him without any reason. God befriends us as we are, fools we that keep His love afar. So the song says basically everything on its own. But it's a very good song to learn and to memorize and to just keep with you throughout the day. Because it applies in so many situations. And again, it's a children's song. And just think, if you learned this song as a child and understood it, or even didn't understand it, but had it in mind, how it could be helpful later in life. Swamiji made this point about children's songs that so many times they're more or less meaningless. And so that you end up looking back on them and thinking, yeah, I sang that stupid song. I'm trying to think of one, because the only ones I can think of have a little bit of meaning. But, ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Posies, they're relating to a terrible disease. And so it's like ring around the rosy, pocket full of these disease things, and we all turn to ashes and die. And not like, and we're reborn as butterflies, or no, just we die. So you think, what was I singing that for? And so similarly, this song, and similarly as a children's song though, this song you can draw from for the rest of life. God is our Father, our Mother too. And just think about how beautiful that is. Now it has to be understood correctly. I can just imagine my parents saying, "Oh, you see?" And so no, it's not what it means. God is our Father, our Mother too. God is our dearest treasure. So if we lose something, for example, that was precious to us, the phone goes into the water and breathes no more. We say, well, God is our dearest treasure. God's ever near, the one friend who. And that can be very helpful when we lose a friend, or when we feel misunderstood, or when we just feel a little isolated, or anything. The one friend, because sometimes that's all we need, that's all we want. Can I just have one friend? Yes, and we have one. But it isn't always the one that we recognize, or the one that we're seeing, or the one that we're yearning for. But it's the one behind, the friend behind all friends, Master used to say. The one friend who loves us without any measure. Of His dreams our love was made. Only from Him is love repaid. And so when we give something in sincerity that's misunderstood, or when we are thinking of someone who we find is not thinking of us, when we are very open-hearted and feeling cheerful and someone just barks at us just because they're in a crummy mood, or also when we misbehave ourselves and then feel that guilt or that sense of, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Just remember, only from Him is love repaid. And if we give love, He will repay that love. If we give love even to people, He will repay that love back. They may not. And it's that you may think, it can be tempting to think that loving in this way universally or impersonally makes us more distant or more cold. But actually it makes us warmer in sharing with other people, because we're not waiting to see, now are you giving back? And if you are, fine, then we can keep going. But if not, then this. You see? And we can also, and all of us yearn to have that love repaid. That's the other side of it. We yearn for that. There's something in us that hungers for that says, I need that love. And as Master said once, don't seek the smiles where the smiles don't come from. And only from Him is love repaid. But it doesn't mean that, again, just so I'm clear, it doesn't mean that we love only Him. We also love Him in others. We don't, someone comes up and we say, listen, I love God, okay? Back off. It's not like that. Master said you can't win the love of God if you can't also win the love of man. Let us in gladness all live for Him. That also emphasizes. What's the key word in this sentence?
Gladness.
Gladness. Of course, there you could pick any word. Even you could make an argument for any of these words being used, but gladness, because so much on the spiritual path, just okay, God, it's just you and me. Just getting kind of grim. Let us in gladness. Sri Yukteswar, who was a Jnana avatar and could be very stern, and you might even say habitually wore that mode of seriousness and graveness. Swamiji saw, and Master were looking at a picture of Sri Yukteswarji outside Master's, I think it was outside Master's room, and Swamiji said, I see such love in his eyes. And Master said there was no love in those eyes. And of course he doesn't mean it that way, but it's because Sri Yukteswar manifested wisdom, and either you did or you didn't. And if you didn't, that's it. And so anyway, let us, but even so, so Sri Yukteswarji, of all saints, said, to find God one need not disfigure his face, with a frown. He said, remember, finding God will be the funeral of all sorrows. And so we have to affirm that, holding that joy close. As also Swamiji said, if you want to meditate with joy, don't just say, joy, when am I ever going to feel that? Meditate with joy. Don't just hope and wait that maybe joy will stop by. Affirm the joy. Reach out with joy. Let us in gladness all live for Him. Serve Him in every season. I know that may not make a lot of sense here in Chennai, but it's always sort of the same season. Maybe it rains once in a while. No, I'm kidding. It's not just serve Him in every season, serve Him throughout the year. It is that. But also in every season of life. Even if we're upset, even if we're having a big setback, that may be the perfect time to then come and serve, or serve Him in some other way. Just for a very selfish reason. When we serve, it gets us out of ourselves. Suddenly we are thinking of others, we're giving to others, and even if we're not consciously aware of what's happening, we find a little bit of relief. And we also find something positive that we can do. If we're, for example, we're suffering from the loss of a loved one, there's not much we can do outwardly about the situation. Inwardly, we can pray for the person, and that's very meaningful. It has a concrete effect, if you can call anything in the astral world concrete. Probably not, but it has a real effect. But in terms of what we can do outwardly, there's not much we can do. But if we give to others perhaps who are suffering too, then it helps us feel an outlet for all of that energy that wants to help, or wants to act, wants to do something. Serve Him in thought with hand and limb. Love Him without any reason. That's my favorite line in the song. Love Him without any reason. Not just I love you because you gave me these things. And thanks, and keep them coming. Love Him without any reason. You see that in children sometimes, that they just are so open-hearted, sometimes even to strangers or to someone who they've seen a few times, and they're loving without any reason. And we started out like that. And so it isn't to say, though, that we, throughout growing up became wiser and bitter and, all that. Maybe. But we also probably started out wiser and bitter and so on, and then died, and then we're reborn. And for a while, okay, good. No job, all the food I can eat, excellent. I am happy and enjoying life now. And so it's a cycle. But just to say, love God without any reason, find ways to do that. It's also a very light thing. just sharing each moment with God. Just loving, again, without any reason, without any purpose, although of course there's a very deep purpose behind it all. God befriends us as we are. That may also be my favorite line in the song. God befriends us as we are. If you remember no other line, remember this one. He befriends us as we are. He doesn't say, well, you're good enough, but you're not good enough. So I'll be friends with you, but not with you yet. If you're watching the video, there's no one over there. I'm not. He and Swamiji said this too of Master, and we saw it in him. He accepted people where they were, which is two things. One is he was happy with them as they were, as you are. But he was also seeing the highest potential. He was seeing the soul beyond the limiting ego, beyond the whatever darknesses we had in ourselves or have. He sees beyond that to the soul. And so it's easy for him to accept us as we are because we're a part of him. This is God now. See, he sees us just a soul, a spark of himself. So of course he loves us as we are. But it also means he accepts us as we are. It doesn't mean he doesn't want us to grow. And it doesn't mean he just lets us out of the prison jail because that's fine, you know. No. But he sees everything. Everything. That's why we were listening to a talk of Masters yesterday at the retreat. He said that's why it's so hard to find God, because he sees everything. He said you can't fool him. But then he continued, that's why most important on the spiritual path is to be sincere. And then, of course, you love it with Master. The most important thing is to be sincere and have wisdom and joy and bliss. You know, it's just wonderful because, you know, you could never get the logical, rational rule because his goal was to get us out of this kind of thinking. But God befriends us as we are, fools we that keep his love afar. So if we're not feeling it, it's not because of him. It's not his lack. It's not his mistake. It's not his negligence. It isn't that he forgot. But it is just that and I don't mean this in a heavy way, because if we go, oh yes, I know, well, that's even worse. Just forget it. Fine. I'm going to stop doing that in this moment. And it's a constant attuning ourselves to that, to his loving presence, accepting us as we are. It's not just, you know, oh, I heard that I was supposed to do it. I did it once, let's see, in 2008. And now I'm remembering I'm supposed to do it and I feel so stupid for not having done it. He's created the whole Maya to distract us. Someone said God must be mad at us for, you know, falling into all these traps of Maya. And Swamiji said, but God himself set all the traps. So, I mean, he's the one who dug the hole and then covered it up with little leaves and everything. I mean, why would he be upset if you fall into his trap? Maybe he's happy. Ha! Work together. No, he's not happy. But the point is he knows all the traps. He laid them there to say, learn. That's all. Just learn. And there's something in us that needs to learn. Because sometimes you'll see an obvious pitfall. Like, let me see, do I want to become an alcoholic? No. And I mean that compassionately. I don't think anyone says, yes, I want to. And it's a real struggle. So it's important to be compassionate too. But the reason why Master said you don't feel an attraction to something is because you've already done it in past lives and found that it didn't work. So just remember that in seeing anything that you think, oh, right, that poor person, it's what I see their path leading them to is misery. We only know because it led us to misery. And so not only that takes away the judgment or the sense of superiority of, well, I can see that what you're doing is a mistake. I mean, what do you think God says, yeah, you see that, let me tell you about you. But also that sense that, look, I've been there, I've done it too. And otherwise, how would I know it doesn't work? As Master said, it's the only way that you know it doesn't work is because you've tried it. And so that also helps us think that, well, gosh, I mean, in some ways we can thank some of our past incarnations, like whoever you were who, learned that lesson, thanks, because now I know it. Now I don't have to relearn it, and so on. But it's a constant bringing ourselves back to, if I don't feel the joy, it's only because in some way I'm holding it away from me. And there's a few ways in which that can happen. Swamiji, I was listening to a talk and I heard him say this, where he said, we really, after a while, we think that we understand these things on the spiritual path, and especially after a number of years or a number of books, or in his case at the time, he was saying after 36 years of living this philosophy, and that was a long time ago, that it was 36 years, he said, you would think, you kind of feel like you must understand something by now. You can't help but understand something. But he said, but I find that very often I don't. That if there's something wrong in my life, or something isn't going the way I want it to be going, or somehow just there's some disharmony or discord or just some difficulty, he said, I always come back to the same discovery, that my problem has been that I've been thinking about me. And as soon as I recognize that and laugh and can let it go, everything works out right again. And it doesn't mean that if we let go of the thought of how this affects me, if we let go of ourself, that therefore suddenly God says, okay, fine, here's all the money back, and now you're healthy and well, and now I got rid of that person too. It isn't that necessarily outwardly things change. But inwardly, we're just not so excited about this isn't what I wanted. Or, to put it another way, this is what I wanted. As Swamiji pointed out, there's some pain in pleasure even, because it's like, I love this and I'm afraid it's going to go away. I don't want it to be over yet. I don't want to lose it. And so even in having a good time, we can somehow be worried, okay, but when's the bad time coming? And so remember, it's constantly, how do we, if I'm not feeling God, it's because I'm holding Him afar. And this is another way that we can keep Him afar is through stress, just through working so much, and then just kind of feeling caught up in our work and focused on our work and, all this. And it doesn't mean that, of course we can be very active in working and also thinking of Him. And we can also be very concentrated and not necessarily thinking of Him, but so concentrated that we're sort of not even really thinking at all in a way. We're just, all our energy is going in one direction. And that's fine too. It's only when we're not working, the body is no longer working, but the mind is still working. Which is to say, it's running over, okay, next, then I'll do this, and then, okay, when I finish that, and it keeps on going that way. Or it plans, or it just can't let go. I had this problem yesterday. I was trying to meditate, but I had this other project I was working on, and my mind just wouldn't put it down. And so for a while, I thought, okay, well, I'll just let my mind kind of run its course, and then it'll get tired, and then it'll be satisfied, and then it'll cooperate. And that didn't work. It just kept on kind of, this and that, and then it started over again. Okay, so we've already gone over this. Well, but let's go over it one more time. And so I then thought, all right, well, let me kind of, I tried something else that didn't work. I can't even remember what it was, but I tried little sort of dialogues and little things, and nothing worked. And finally, I just said, Master, I'm kind of enjoying thinking about this, because I was so kind of attached to it. But I realized something feels that it's kind of not right to be doing this during meditation. Yeah, it's completely not right. You're supposed to be meditating. But it's like, I have to admit that as much as I'm enjoying running in circles, I probably shouldn't be. Because we get this false sense that no, I'm accomplishing something. I'm busy. We're making plans. I'm competent. It's like, if you want to be competent, rejuvenate yourself, replenish yourself, recharge your batteries, so then you can go back into it. Otherwise, we go back into it, exhausted because we sat there going until all the energy was gone. And so I said, Master, how can I let go of this project that I'm working on? And the thought came back, I'm working on the project. You're not working on the project. Oh, yeah. Of course. It's his project. He's the one working on it. Maybe through me, maybe not. But it's his project. Now, and I say that came and touched my heart, because we can also say, Master, it's your project and you're working on it. And one thing I think you might want to do also. In other words, it has to really be real. We can't just put it all in quotes. I know that a devotee says that he is always the one doing all. You have to feel it. But in other words, when you feel it, it doesn't have to be a big revelation. Swamiji said that in this line that whenever some realization comes to us, if it has inspiration and feeling behind it, it can be something we've heard 1,000 times. But if it has that power, then it touches us. He said, for example, what could be more common, what could be in some ways a more commonly heard or known phrase than I love you? That we all, just go into Archie's if you're not, haven't heard it enough or read it enough. You say, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. I love you. He said, but when said with feeling, it's very meaningful. It's, in some ways, it can be the most beautiful 3 words there are. And so, but it's not because they're, a surprise in terms of, whoa, what does that mean? You have to look it up in the dictionary. It's just that, so that feeling, that's the point when these realizations come. I say that also because if we have statements without feeling, then we shouldn't be satisfied. Just that if we can say, for example, I know God is the doer. If it doesn't move us, if we don't feel anything from it, if everything again is just in quotes, then it's not enough. It shouldn't be enough for our hearts. In other words, cultivate that hunger that says enough study, enough books, enough whatever. I want to know. And if these things can help me to know, to feel, excellent. But if not, then I'd rather spend more time doing my own investigations, my own, replace the book with a chant, for example, and so on. So then after I said to Master, how do I get rid of this thought? And he said, I'm doing the project, not you. And then it reminded me, because I was so attached, like I'm doing the project, and it wasn't so much I'm doing it, but just that, I'm doing it alone, and I'm, focused on it, and it's really important. And so we can get so attached that way. And so I remembered the story that I wanted to read to you from the life of Master. Once Master called a disciple away for a week from almost indispensable work at Mount Washington. Let me read that again. Once Master called a disciple away for a week from almost indispensable work at Mount Washington, just so he could drive him around in the desert. The disciple was worrying inside about his neglected responsibilities, and the Master mentioned it once. Master then said, well, this is your responsibility now. I go by the orders of the Supreme Boss up there. He is the one you are answerable to. You must be free. He could tell me right now, come home, and I would drop everything, organization, buildings, work, people, everything, and do his word. Because this world is his business. He is the doer, not you or I. And I often bring that story to mind when I'm too caught up in something, and then suddenly I'm taken out of it to do something else. Just remember Master having that disciple in the middle of everything, just say, come and drive me around the desert. I mean, that's it. Like, here we're going around the desert, not seemingly to any purpose. Now, of course, from our vantage point, it's like, drive Master? Anywhere. You know, I will drive him to Red Hills, I will drive him to Velachery, I will drive him anywhere you want, because it would be so thrilling. But more, it's him, Master, saying, this is your responsibility now. That was your responsibility, this is your responsibility. For example, you're working hard, then you have to go on a trip. It's like, this is your responsibility now. It's God's show. And Master said, don't get mixed up in his show. It's his world. Don't try to understand it, and don't try to take responsibility for it. Why should you? He said, he's the one running everything. Now, of course we have to take our responsibility seriously. Master said, this is your responsibility now. So why? Why does God give us any responsibilities? Because of what it does for us. That's it. At the end of this life, you do not get to keep any of the clothes, the special clothes that we might have bought or made. We don't get to keep any of the titles. We lose all the degrees. You know, you say, well, I was, PhD this lifetime, and then, lost it. And we don't get to keep any of the money. We do get to keep some of the relationships, if they're deep. And deep means both ways, positive or negative. But the negative relationships really are our way of working out that negativity in ourselves. And it doesn't mean that if someone is very harsh with us, it's because secretly we are also very, very harsh, and that this is, that they're trying to bring it out of us. Or it's not so easy, it's easily misunderstood. We can't say we know why something is happening to us. Like, I'm sure I deserved it because I was really bad, so now I'm getting punished. If that thought inspires you, which I haven't met anyone yet who it does, then fine. But if you could say, for example, well, listen, I'm sure I have dished it out as much as I am now taking it. Let me not dish it out anymore, because I don't want to keep the tennis match going. They'll hit the ball, it'll keep hitting me. Fine. I'm not going to hit it back because I don't want this dynamic to continue. So that's one thing. But another is, sometimes we have a little bit of a tendency towards, for example, speaking harshly. And then, so what Divine Mother does is put somebody into our life who is that way, either all the time, or a lot, or only at us, or something. Not because we're behaving the same way, but because we could, if we weren't careful. And having that experience is a constant reminder to use self-control and to not do that. And it's not so easy to explain in the abstract, but for example, sometimes you may have a really harsh boss, and then you end up finally being a boss. And then you see, oh my God, all the temptation to just be that same exact way. Not because you don't know better, and not because you say, now it's finally my turn. I wonder if some people think that. I got yelled at as a child, or as a daughter-in-law, or as a whatever, and now I'm in the position where I get to yell. I just wonder if some people think that, because why else would they do it? It's like, now I have seniority, so I get to dish out the poundings. So strange. But anyway, you see why. When you're a boss, for example, suddenly you have all the stress. If you're really the boss, you have all the stress of writing all the paychecks. And we may think paychecks are a wonderful thing, and they're wonderful if you're receiving them. But they're very stressful if you are writing them, because you have to have enough money in the bank to be able to write them. And when you look at the company's expense, it's kind of like payroll, and then, rent and advertising and, all that. And so, all you have to see is any business owner, especially around the end of the month, just kind of like, what's going on? Payroll. Just the whole thing. And so, it's a big... People are looking at one another. Yeah, I heard you say that. Yeah. No, but my parents were business owners too, and so I saw it with them too. Just that, oh my God, we got to pay the salaries. Not because they didn't want to, but it's just a big, huge stress, and it's people's lives. You can't just go, you know what, we're gonna wait for a month, and don't. I know sometimes that does happen. Let's not go there. But I mean, in other words, if even you can be a very sincere, kind person, not just something else. And so you care about the impact of this person's life, this family, and so on. So I don't just mean it in a sort of greedy way at all. So just to say that when you have that kind of stress, and then someone comes up to you and says, I put my food in the refrigerator and I put my name on it and somebody else ate it, and I want an investigation. This happens. You can see what the person says, get out of my office! You can see the temptation. Because it's like, do you know what I have to deal with for your sake? And now you're coming to me about lunch being stolen? I mean, come on. You're 46 years old. I think you can sort it out. So you see, again, when we're suddenly in that position and under that pressure, which we were completely innocent or unaware of before, we remember, yes, but I remember when that harsh boss was always yelling at me. And now I understand more sympathetically and compassionately and empathetically why he was always yelling, because he was so upset. I wish he could have just said, I'm feeling a little bit pressured right now with everything. Can we talk about your sandwich later? But he didn't. But maybe I can. Maybe I... Please. And how many languages did you write? What color was it? We'll see. Look to see who has crumbs at their desk. So just keep this in mind, that sometimes you have an extreme energy coming at you just because it's reminding you, okay, see how calm you can be in the face of it. And again, that doesn't also always mean that we should just take it forever. Sometimes that is the test, is for us to be able to say, no, that's enough, or whatever. So again, you can't just say this is what the point is. It's something that comes out of us for each of us, because each one of us is learning something a little bit different, even if it's all the same lesson, how to love God more. That's all any of us are trying to really learn. But we're going to learn it each in our own way. And I don't just mean through our own individual experiences, but we're going to love God in our own way. And so even though chanting, meditation, so many of the prescriptions are universal, and we chant the same chant, we don't just make up one chant for him and one chant and say, okay, now all together now, imagine. But it's just that it will come out of you naturally in your own way. And God will have a unique relationship, does have a unique relationship with you, just as you are. And so I want to close. All of this, of course, relates to reincarnation because we have to keep trying. And I see this sometimes with devotees, that there's a certain joy of especially being on the path, but there's also a certain sadness I sometimes see. And I've wondered about it, and I see it in myself sometimes too. And I think one reason that the source for that sadness is this sense of I haven't succeeded yet, which is a kindly way of putting it. Usually it's I failed. And it's not only just, well, I said I was going to meditate an hour and a half each day, and then I got really busy, and now I haven't been meditating an hour and a half each day, and now I feel really guilty about that failure. And, if that again motivates us to say, well, enough. Now I'm going to meditate an hour and a half starting now. Rather than just feel this way, I'm just going to do it. Or I'm going to say, God, I don't think I can do an hour and a half, but I realize there's another choice besides an hour and a half and 0. So I think I'll try a half an hour, or I'll try 15 minutes, and I'll start there, and I'll pick a time that I know I can keep. And then let me stay with that and then see where it leads me. Rather than just not meditating at all and then feeling guilty about it, or feeling, again, like a failure. So that's one thing. As we see, there are all these sort of things we've committed to or we want to do. And we find our lives tearing at our resolution. And Swamiji said, it's important to be firm in your resolution. And that's balanced also with the song, God befriends us as we are. Remember that part of it too. He sees the whole thing. He's right there with you going, come on, nope, not today. Okay, well, we'll try again. Oh, come on. He's right with us the whole time. He hasn't gone anywhere. And he doesn't want to go anywhere else. But the other reason is that I think it can accumulate over lifetimes, this sense of, on the one hand, it's a huge blessing. In fact, there's no other hand. It is only a huge blessing to be attracted to a spiritual path that can get you freedom. And it's a wonderful thing, a huge blessing to be attracted to yoga. And for Kriya, one friend of mine had a sort of a psychic, not a psychic reading, but like a Brigu reading. And it said, you were with Yogananda for many lifetimes in Himalayas and so on. And on the one hand, of course, I'm sure the person was like, nice. Of course, it'd be nicer to remember that. On the other hand, I think it's true for all of us on one level. It has to be. One reason this man gave after that, he said, that's why you have so much trust in the Kriya Yoga. And it was an interesting way of putting it. That's why you have so much trust. Because you could also say that's why you have so much faith in Kriya Yoga. And for some of us, you sort of say, I have faith in Kriya Yoga. That's like saying I have faith in mathematics. It's like you don't need to have faith in mathematics, or you don't have to have faith in gravity. It's going to work one way or the other. But even to feel that's true, if you feel that, well, I know Kriya works. Master said it did, and I've been practicing it. That is still faith. That is trust, born of experience. That's the only way you really get this trust, is because I know it works because I tried it out. I've been trying it out all this time. And remember, you've been with Master before, very likely. First of all, he said so, that in his lifetime, he said, most of those here have been with me many lives. But Swamiji also said, if we all of Master's family came down at once to all live with him on earth, which would be nice, but he said, then how would this work ever continue? There have to be people picking up the baton, passing the baton in the relay race, carrying it on. And I've joked sometimes that we must have drawn straws in the astral world, and then we got, okay, I don't get to go down with Master this time, rats. But then, why? It's because he said, well, you've come down the past 75 times, let someone else come down, and you just wait it out for 80 years, okay, and then we'll be back again together, and so on. So remember that you have been with him. And more than that, you are with him now. Certainly he's with you. Remember he said to Swamiji, when Swamiji said, will you be as near to us now as after you leave the body? Will you be as near to us after you leave the body as you are now? And Master said to him, to those who think me near, I will be near. To those who think me near, I will be near. He didn't say if you think me near, then, you'll feel good, but it's all in your head. He said, I will be there. Now, if we really believe that, let's start thinking him near. And he will be near. But again, that faith in his words even, that he could even speak the truth and that he could follow through on that promise, is because of past experience. But then sometimes comes also this feeling of past failure. That, gosh, I thought I was going to make it and I didn't make it. And I don't mean so much in this life, though it may be. But it's more sort of lingers, that sense of, gosh, I've been trying at this a long time and I'm still here. And I still have indigestion and all these basic things that, I started with way back when I was a, centipede and all that. And so, sorry, I don't know why I said that. When they go like this, they're indigested. So, no, I'm kidding. So that we have, Anandamoy Maha described it as the soul as trying to get your boat into the ocean. And that when you're standing at the shore, when you try to put your boat in, but the waves just knock it back. So then you try a different part, and the waves knock it back, and so on. And if we, after each time we get knocked back, it's natural to feel discouraged. In the sense, and I should also say it's tempting to feel discouraged. But after a while, it becomes, unhelpful to feel discouraged. She said eventually you find at one point in the sea where the undertow is, or the riptide is, and suddenly it pulls the boat out to sea. You don't have to do anything. You just have to find the right place and just not give up. I mean, I was thinking in terms of when we were learning to ride a bicycle. I mean, if you tried the first time and it didn't work out, did you say, well, that's it? Or give up? No. And that's all we're trying to do. The masters are, already learned how to ride the bicycle, and they're riding by saying, look, it's really easy. Just go like this. And they're, oh, you got it down. I just can't do it. Just like, they're just driving around in circles around us going, look, it's really not hard. Just come here, learn to ride with me. And so let's try to keep this in mind, to stay out of discouragement and in encouragement. Because what choice do we have? This is really what makes a devotee, is that growing, deepening realization that there really is no other option. I'm either going to end up free in God, or I'm going to end up free in God. That's it. That's the only destiny. Now, that's the only option. So, let's just get on with it. And if it takes me one extra try, or two extra tries, or three extra tries, so what? What other choice do I have? If you feel you do have a choice, well then, as Swamiji said, then we're tempted to take that choice. Okay, forget it. You know what? I'm going to write some movie scripts and just make some money. Okay, but you'll end up back at this point again eventually. It doesn't mean if we do outer things like that, if we're learning, if we're doing them with God, fine. But if we're leaving our spiritual search in order to do that, well, it's not useful once we've understood as much as we have. So again, we have no other choice. This is another antidote to fear as well. Suppose we're really afraid something's going to happen, or we're afraid we are going to do something wrong, or we're going to make a mistake, or we're going to set ourselves back. And maybe we even feel that we have. What's the outcome? Well, we finish this life, perhaps, meaning it could come before finishing this life. We just are born again, we try again. Try again. Okay, try again. So, that's the only, and there is no permanent being finished, there is no permanent brain damage, there is no permanent nothing. It's just, try again. So if that's going to happen in the next life, why not have it happen in this life? Let me try again now. And it's just so important to keep that, to stay out of that sense of discouragement. In a way, really, the reason why I brought it up also is why do we even do that besides just the natural emotion of being really invested in something and then not getting it? Is that when we do that, when we say, you see my hand? Fools we that keep his love afar. That's all we're doing, is we're keeping him back with that strong thought, I failed. That's all we're doing. And so I've sometimes asked myself when I feel that way, why am I holding him? Why am I afraid? Why am I pulling away? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm not saying, see how self-honest I am by saying how terrible I am. Or this sort of self-torture that I'm doing. There's nothing holy about it. It's stupid. But the reason why we do it is because we're using it as a way to hold ourselves away. So let's let go of that. So I wanted to close with these words of Masters. This was a letter he wrote to a disciple in his lifetime, but of course it's for all of us. You must never lose courage. Divine Mother sent me to pilot you out of the clouds of your mind. Everybody's difficulty is different, and he or she has to win that test of karma. Overcome all by constant inward calling on God and utmost devotion in words, thought, action, and obedience to Guru. Your troubles I do not mind. I will never give up my job about you. It is better to conquer one evil and not live with it forever. Never for a moment identify yourself with momentary flashes of error. Have no fear, even though I am gone from your visible eyes. You will never be alone. I may not scold you then, but I shall ever be with you, and through Divine Mother guard you from all harm, and will constantly whisper to you guidance through your loving self. So do not become discouraged and tired, but ever be interested in working for Divine Mother, no matter if war, sickness, death dances around you. Be cut to pieces, but never give up. Be like the divine leech, suck at the blood of wisdom even though torn to bits. A smooth life is not a victorious life, and I will give you lots of my good karma, so you will get through. I will not only ever forgive you, but ever lift you up, no matter how many times you fall. Keep unceasingly trying to conquer. Not only will I invisibly help you, oh, sorry, there's a mistake in it. Basically, it says, not only will I invisibly help you, but also visibly through many of those here. I am not building a mansion for you or giving you riches which will perish, but I am making an imperishable home with all riches in my Divine Mother's mansion.